Tony D and Little Joan just off camera, and this is a screenwriter's take on Reacher Season 2. Watch the first 2 episodes. As always, excelente. Smash like and subscribe. Thank you for smash liking and subscribing. Check out my books. The links are in the description. Comedy Heart in South Jersey. It's the Pineys, books 1 through 13, available at Amazon.com. Don't forget, Kindle Unlimited is free. All right. So as always, I'll give you the non-spoiler review. Haven't seen the end of it, so can't really give you too many spoilers, but and then the spoiler review will break it down. So in the previous season, if you haven't seen it, highly recommend. Reacher, the story arc is kind of like, it's about how Reacher ingratiates himself in a case, right? So in the previous season, comes into a town, gets caught up in a mystery, gets caught up in the townspeople and the local police. It starts with him being a guy who keeps getting arrested and ends with him leading the only honest cops in town against the big bad guys at the end. This one is a little different. It's closer to maybe the Terminal List. So it flashes back to when Reacher was in his special investigator unit, and it connects to his past and the guys and women who were in his unit. So they have to solve a mystery because some of those guys are dead. And the first one, it was his brother. This one, these are his friends. And Reacher's character is sort of a guy who doesn't have a lot of close friends, so they're kind of more important to him than, everybody has friends that are important, but because he has fewer friends, those individuals then gain an elevated importance, I think, to the character. So the first 2 episodes are about, him getting the team back together, so to speak, and the mystery is just unfolding. Really, Reacher, as a season of shows, is kind of like a 10-hour movie when you think about it. Really, the first 2 episodes is the first act, maybe the third one too. We'll throw some in there. The middle episodes, all the way up to probably about 9, are the second act, and then the final episode is really the third act, because that's when you're going to get all the payoffs. You're probably not going to get too many payoffs in episode 8 or 9. It'll just be wind up to that sort of final confrontation. So the pacing's amazing, well directed, everything's crisp, moves. I watched the first episode, didn't even think twice about going right into the second one, and really, I may watch the third tonight. I don't know. But I wanted to get the video done at some point. Right, doggy? Right, doggy? So, Reacher's character is a little different in this one. In the last one, he was kind of able to have his guard up more, where in this one there are other characters that actually know him, so he's a little more awkward. You get a little more insight into his personal character and his flaws. Basically, his flaws are, he doesn't really deal with his feelings. He just kind of does. He's more obsessed with doing the right thing than satisfying any particular urges or feelings. And so that comes out definitely in episode 2. Good action, as always. Haven't gotten to the really hardcore stuff yet. So yeah, if you haven't been watching Reacher, I don't know what to tell you. It's easily the best show I've seen on Prime. I've seen one other good show on Prime, but this one has, that was the cartoon, but this has a budget This has a great cast, based on a really solid series of books. Um, I could see them doing every single book in the run. I'm not that familiar with the books. Some people have talked about it in the comments. I mean, there's several books. It's a book series. So, again, Alan Ritchson on point for Reacher. He's the right size, which was the main drawback of having Tom Cruise play this character. All right, so let's get into some spoilers. These aren't particularly harsh because, again, I didn't see the whole season, but spoilers ahoy. Um, so, the first episode is about his relationship between him and his friend from the squad, the master sergeant, I forget her name, and how they get, how they wind up hunting down their old friend who was killed. And it's pretty much straightforward mystery show, you know, but well paced. Um, the only thing, and I don't know if this was in the book, but they had a time limit thing with finding a little hard drive, a little flash drive that the guy had hidden. And the deal was they plugged it in, and since the flash drive didn't recognize the computer, you had 2 minutes to punch in the appropriate password, and you only got 3 tries, or that was the end of the software, or the files, which I thought was I don't know if that's in the book or if that was a contrivance of the show. So it was a little weird, but I kind of liked it. Um, the third guy that they added in is fun, and he's in the flashbacks too. The flashbacks aren't that far in the past. They don't really do much to change the actors other than change their clothes. They look about the same exact age, but it's not that far in the past. Dixon is introduced in kind of a weird way. Would be my only criticism of the first 2 episodes. So Dixon, who's Reacher's love interest in this season, they're ditching their car at an airport, and they basically run into her. I mean, it just seemed like that was out of the blue. How did Reacher know she would be there? Didn't really seem to explain. Seemed to be a huge oversight for a show that's usually pretty good on the details. He seems to just spot her just at the right moment. So I was a little surprised they did something that kind of I don't know, hokey. Or maybe I missed something while I was watching it. It's possible I did. I don't think so. But beyond that, then they go to get the girlfriend of one of their guys who they assume is dead, and get some information from her. And then there's a scene where they take down some guys from that was sent by what's his face, the Terminator 2 guy. It's Terminator 2000 guy. Can't think of his name all of a sudden. Always happens. Anyhow, he's the big bad guy in this, and he sends guys to kill them, and they wait until they wander away from the casino, which they do, and then they decide to kill the guys not using guns, which in Atlantic City, I don't know if you'd have a huge problem with that, quite frankly, but okay. I mean, I'm sure eventually they'd send a car, but seems to me that I don't know if they knew. They seem to know a little too much in that scene, in that there was a car that had followed them, and Reacher remembered the plate, and then there were 2 guys that were coming up behind him, and then they go into a construction site, and then they play a game of cat and mouse. But that's a very TV thing. I was kind of fine with it for the most part, just because, again, I like the characters, and it seemed to fit Atlantic City, the way they killed the guys and then buried them in cement. But ultimately, it didn't feel very realistic. So that portion of the show, I was like, yeah, like, seemed like it was a little too convenient. But then, of course, him and Dixon end up having sex because it's, I guess, the turn on. They both end up killing some dudes, and then they go back to the hotel and they're stitching up their wounds, and then they get all hot and bothered and have sex. But again, the show moves, so that it's never lingering on anything. But if I had to rate it, the first season is pretty spectacular. These first two episodes are good. I like them a lot, and I'm going to watch the rest of the series. But I'm finding flaws that I didn't find in the first season. But I'm nitpicking. From a screenwriter's perspective, I mean, this is what I did. So I'm not sure. I believe that Reacher would memorize the license plate of a car that maybe followed them in. Like, the only way to do that, and I get it, he's a detective and that's part of his shtick, but, you know, is he watching every license plate that's coming down the Atlantic City Expressway as he drove to Atlantic City? I don't know. I don't know. And if so, like, one of the things that always bothers me in any TV show is how the characters never tell each other things. Right? So, like, Reacher and Dixon come back to the hotel room after nearly being murdered and have sex, but they never bothered to tell the other two. Like, you know, they could have sent an assassin team up to the... I mean, you could have written an assassin's team, even in the casinos where they say, well, they don't want to go up there because of all the cameras. Sure, but... I mean, that's a reason, but it is a TV show. So... Right? Or, like, who knows? For all they knew, the other two would have went for a walk, or, I don't know, went out for pizza or whatever, went to a restaurant, and the same thing could have happened. So, you know, I get it. It's all part of the show. I'm fine with it. I'm just... The other season didn't have those, what I would consider tiny little flaws. I can overlook it because the show just moves so well from one thing to the next. And, you know, since it's a book, some of the details will probably have to be collapsed in order to fit it into an episode, right? Some of the stuff has to be rearranged. I mean, they're taking a book and turning it into 10 episodes. You might have to add a bunch of stuff. I mean, for all I know, the scene in Atlantic City with Reacher and Dixon nearly being killed by three assassins wasn't in the book at all. And they needed to fill up the episode with an action scene because it's the second episode. And there was no action in the novel at that point, so they throw it in there. But they're clearly building to the main assassin, who's not the guy from Terminator 2, but some kind of assassin dude who's using fake names with the initials AM, and clearly by the end of everything, it's going to be, you know, Reacher and his crew against that guy and his crew, right? And God, I can't think of his name. Patrick? Something Patrick. Terminator 2 will, Terminator 2000, I should say, will of course be in the end too. And I think Reacher and his crew will end up killing all these guys because it's very personal. I don't know what they're going to do for a third season. That's the interesting thing with this, because both these stories were very personal. The first one was his brother. You don't get much more personal than that. This one was personal in that it was his crew, which, you know, they're like family, especially to a guy like Reacher, who but still not the same as a brother. And so I'm not sure if it was a good idea to do the books out of order and just pick the best ones or the most important ones, because then that tends to leave you with less important books for the other seasons. But this is such high quality, I'm gonna probably watch the entire run, however many seasons. I would like to see him do every single book, quite frankly, because I think Richson really embodies the character well. Um, it he's the right size. Some people online were complaining about him being all ripped. It's like, dude, he's an actor. Of course he's going to be ripped, especially in this day and age. I mean, like, back in the 80s, you might get a doughy guy as the lead. Handsome in the face, but not totally in shape. I mean, look at William Shatner back in the day. But these days, nah, you got to be ripped. And, I don't care. I mean, I'm not in it to see him all ripped, but, it does add an aesthetic, I think, that the actor is, he's that muscular and that built. In most other shows, it wouldn't. But for Reacher, part of it is about him being such a beast and them constantly mentioning it. And I think that was really what was missing from the Tom Cruise Reacher. They just couldn't really do that with him. He's just too small. Which is a shame, because I think Cruise certainly can act and is talented, but I just think he was the wrong guy for the role. But Richson is really delivering it. I'm anxious to see the end of this season, because I'm anxious to see the resolution between him and Dixon, because obviously he doesn't end up with her. I mean, I think we could all guess at that, because Reacher's got to continue to wander the earth. I suspect, I hope this isn't true. This would be very cliche if Dixon was in on it. That I would not be happy with. I also would be bummed out if she got killed. I don't want to see any of Reacher's guys get killed. Too many of them have been killed already, quite frankly. That would be really sad. I'd like to see a couple of characters survive this. And I'm not sure if that happened in the book, because if that did indeed happen in the book, that could be a real problem. Since they're doing the books out of order, if one of the characters was alive, say, through books 1 through 5, and we're doing, say, I don't know, books 2 and now 7, or say 5, where one of these characters get killed, if they jump back to, say, 3, are they going to have to explain, well, this one takes place before the events of season 2? I don't think they want to do that. In a show that's only in its second season. Maybe once you're around season 7 or 8, I guess you can go back and do that and say, well, this season takes place before season 1. Whatever. Again, hate prequels. But, yeah, I think if you got Amazon Prime, and you haven't watched this, you're missing one of the best shows on TV, quite frankly. This would have been an absolute ratings bear if it was on Network's TV. Oh my God. This would have absolutely crushed everything. On, like, CBS. How did CBS or NBC or ABC pass this up? Have you seen the stuff on television these days? Now, granted, on Reacher, it can get a little bloody. It's got some nudity in it sometimes. First season had a ton of, not a ton, but a bit of shocking nudity and nudity. I think it would have been easy to get around that in a network show. I mean, they always do. And still have, the steamy scenes or whatever. But this would have been a ratings monster if this had been on network TV, I think. Everybody would have been watching it. But Prime got it, and somehow they haven't ruined it yet. Which is amazing to me, because after seeing the Rings of Power, That was god awful. I watched 2 seasons of that, or 2 episodes of that, I'll say. I didn't watch a single second more, and I won't. It's brutal to me. Whereas this, I can't wait to finish this review and watch season 3, or episode 3. So yeah, that's it for me. Tony D and Little Joan somewhere in the house. Thanks for tuning in. What's going on? Oh, I'm going to be doing a signing, if it doesn't rain, at Valari's on Sunday from 11 to 2. It's an outside market, so come on out if you know where Valari's is. Links in the description. And don't forget to check out RVTV, RVN Television, and all things South Jersey, my episode. Available now. The Pineys, all things South Jersey with Tony DiGerolamo. Spelled with a D-E instead of a D-I, but sometimes you make a mistake. Anyhow, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you.